Hi, valuation 20021. Hope you guys are all doing okay. This is going to be the first of a number of videos that I'm going to do to go through some of the rest of the material that I wanted to cover in this module. And last seminar, so last week, week 33, we discussed the potential impact of the coronavirus on property valuation. And this is a really topical question, and I really want you to sort of spend a little bit more time thinking about that for a number of reasons. And one of them is because it's a practical example that really helps put some of the theory into practice. And the second one, of course, is that it's the sort of thing that you need to be thinking about in terms of what's happening with internships and placement interviews. So we discussed that ultimately all methods apart from the depreciated replacement cost ultimately rely on the idea of having some sort of rent to capitalize using some sort of yield. And what we worked out last week is that there's potentially a double whammy here. Not only are rents potentially going to drop, some quite substantially, but also yields might well shoot up. Remember, high yield means high risk, means lower value. So what I want you to think about specifically is which sectors are going to be hit hardest and which sectors might do quite well. So for example, residential, you'd assume was going to hold up relatively well, although arguably if people are losing jobs and so on, are they going to get a mortgage? You know, so there's quite a bit to think about there as well, but I would suggest that resi is going to be one of the more resilient ones. Industrial warehousing, ever popular as it seems at the moment. You know, we're only going to have more online retail to fall back on. That said, you know, a lot of industrial units are used for things like automotive industry, that kind of stuff. So again, tricky to see what the effects are. The ones that are going to really going to struggle the most, you'd assume, are retail. I mean, if that isn't the final death knell in the coffin of retail, I don't know what is. And of course the leisure industry. So everything from gyms, you know, my brother lives in Germany, they've already closed down his little gym. So gyms are going to struggle a bit more. Hotels, restaurants, it's going to be tricky. That said, we've got to try and remember how long is this going to be tricky for. Are we talking about 3 or 4 months and then everything's going to go back to normal? Or are we talking about a year and then the new normal isn't actually what we had beforehand? You know, there really are going to be some really, really fundamental changes. One of the things I wanted you to think about is what's the impact on the office market? If people are working at home, from home, for the next 3 months and everybody all of a sudden gets pretty good at using all sorts of online technology, not having to rely on face-to-face meetings to get things organized and can carry on with business as usual as best as they can, does that mean we actually need the kind of amount of office space we had? Office space is really, really, really expensive. You know, it's one of the highest cost bases. We normally say that salaries and then office rents are the 2 highest costs of office occupiers. So, you know, the question is, from a real estate perspective and in turn from a valuation perspective, are things going to be the same again? So do have a look, go on EGI, go on Property Week, go on CBRE's research portal. CBRE are going to be on this. Have they published something on coronavirus already? Have a read through of that. Remember, one of my questions for the coursework brief is to write a property market overview. You guys are going to have to write about coronavirus in there. I mean, Brexit, that's old hat. You know, we don't need to worry about that for the moment. I need you thinking about coronavirus. So if you are talking in my property market overview using data from last year, as in, remember, the first quarter of this year is going to be the 31st of March 2020. Well, that's not quite over yet. So some of that data may not be out. Depends how soon you start writing it. Although, actually, let me think. The deadline's May, so you should be okay. But you really, really, really need to be addressing that future uncertainty and that future outlook. So from a valuation perspective, if rents are lower, net rents are lower because tenants are not prepared to pay as much, or maybe they just don't need as much space, or they're not prepared to move as frequently, or they want bigger incentives to be, to be convinced to sign a lease in these difficult times, that's going to reduce values. At the same time, as I said, we've got this double whammy where we've got yields shooting up. Central banks around the world are trying to remedy this. You know, they've brought down base rates. We've discussed that. You know that. Has that done enough? Well, hey, you know, maybe I'm a bit doom and gloom, but I'm not the only one. If you look at what's happened with the stock markets, you know, we're still not there. So yeah, have a bit of a think about the impact on valuation. Also have a bit of a think about which areas of the industry are going to struggle most, okay? Leasing agency, investment agency, they already had a tricky time beforehand. Property management, facilities management, strategic asset management, these guys are all going to be doing pretty well. There's work to be done, I guess. Valuation work, tricky. So the amount of valuation work done for, say, secured lending purposes, as in buying and selling of properties, that's probably going to slow down. But you have to revalue your portfolio as a as a property company every quarter. That has to happen no matter what's going on in the market, or especially if things are changing in the market. If you're a listed property company, a REIT, you have to publish your revaluation results every quarter. So working in something like portfolio valuation, that's a pretty cushy job right now. I wouldn't worry, about losing that job too quickly. The valuation office agency, their ratings are going to carry on for the moment as planned. That said, if you think about the last budget or the interim budget, Rishi Sunak, our new Chancellor of the Exchequer, was already discussing the fact that the whole rate system needs a massive overhaul in the UK. So, look out for that. What I would say on a sort of slightly more positive note is it's kind of a badge of honour. You have to have gone through a really serious crisis in the real estate industry at some point. It's a cyclical industry. I joked with one of the seminar groups and I said, well, if you can't handle that, well then, you become a physiotherapist. There's always going to be a steady stream of work there. Our industry is cyclical. You'll live to tell the tale, and the most important thing is learn something from it. And also, I've said this before, but there's always opportunities as well. So think about where might be a really interesting place to work right now. Where do you think people are going to make the most out of this really, really difficult situation? Okay, so hopefully this first video kind of worked out okay. I would definitely appreciate some feedback from you. If there's anything you'd like to see, do you want us to have some sort of module kind of, what's it called, like a blog or something? I'll see if I can get you set up with that. Would you like some sort of conference facility using Zoom? Never used it before, but we could do that. Do you want me to try and set up a multiple choice test? I don't know. You tell me what it is you think you're going to need, and I'll have a think from my end in terms of what the technology allows us to do. Last thing, just don't feel alone. We're all still here for you. We really are. We're going to be working from home. We're at the other end of an email, on a phone call. You're not sort of abandoned. The university, in that sense, still remains open. And don't forget, you've got all the amazing staff in the library who will support you as well. Okie dokie, I'll speak to you soon. Thanks.